a bird that can kill a grown man with a single kick. Not internet exaggeration, a documented fact wildlife authorities point to when they call the cassowary the most dangerous bird alive. Most people picture a bird as something small, delicate, easy to dismiss. Feathers, a beak, maybe a sharp peck if provoked. The cassowary breaks that image before it even finishes forming. Standing well over 5 feet tall, with glossy black plumage and a helmet-like casque crowning its skull, it looks less like a bird and more like something that should have gone extinct alongside the dinosaurs. In a sense, it's one of the closest living echoes of them. But size alone isn't what makes this animal dangerous. What makes it dangerous is still hidden. And it starts with the one part of its body most people never look at twice. The cassowary's legs are the real story. Thick, densely muscled, built for driving force straight down into the ground with brutal efficiency. Each foot carries a dagger-like inner claw that can grow past 4 inches long, sharp enough to slice through flesh in a single motion. It doesn't need to fly to be dangerous. It doesn't fly at all. Instead, evolution gave it something else: explosive kicking power and a sprinting speed that can rival a human running flat out, even through dense undergrowth. The casque on its head, once dismissed as pure decoration, is now believed by researchers to help the bird push through tangled rainforest vegetation and possibly to play a role in how it produces its deep, resonant calls. Every part of the cassowary's body was assembled for one purpose: moving fast and hitting hard in a world of thick, obstructed forest. But a weapon is only as dangerous as the mind deciding when to use it, and that's where the real picture starts to shift. Cassowaries are not naturally aggressive toward humans. Left alone, they spend their days foraging fruit in the rainforest understory, mostly avoiding contact entirely. That's the part of the story most nature content stops at: solitary, shy, elusive. What gets left out is the trigger. Cassowaries are fiercely territorial, and that territoriality sharpens dramatically around nesting season, when males, who alone incubate the eggs and raise the chicks, become hyper-defensive of their space. A bird that ignored you yesterday can charge without warning today simply because the season changed. There's also a pattern that shows up again and again in cassowary encounters. Birds that have been fed by humans lose their natural wariness and begin approaching people directly, associating them with food. That single shift in behavior, habituation, sits behind a disproportionate share of dangerous encounters. So, the danger isn't random aggression. It's a mind capable of tolerance, memory, and sudden defensive escalation. And once humans enter that equation, the outcome depends entirely on how the encounter is handled. In rural Queensland, a teenage boy once encountered a cassowary and made the decision to strike it with a stick. The bird responded with a single kick to his neck. He didn't survive the wound. It remains one of the only confirmed human deaths ever attributed directly to a cassowary attack. Since then, documented incidents have followed a strikingly consistent pattern: people approaching too closely, attempting to hand feed the birds, or cornering one with no clear escape route. Cases involving captive cassowaries have shown the same danger applies even in controlled environments. A bird raised in captivity is still capable of the same explosive force if it feels trapped or threatened. Wildlife agencies across northern Australia have logged dozens of non-fatal attacks over the decades, nearly all sharing the same root cause: humans misjudging the bird's tolerance, often after earlier encounters made it comfortable approaching people in the first place. These aren't isolated freak accidents. They're the predictable result of a specific, repeatable mistake, one that keeps happening because almost nobody sees it coming. Part of the problem is branding. The cassowary looks almost cartoonish, a strange, vividly colored head, a body shaped like an oversized turkey, an awkward waddling gait when it isn't sprinting. None of that reads as apex-level danger to the human brain, which is wired to associate threat with bared teeth, extended claws, or a predatory stare. Add to that the fact that cassowaries are herbivorous fruit eaters, and the mental math collapses even further. Most people equate eats plants with harmless, a shortcut that ignores how many of the animal kingdom's most dangerous species, from hippos to elephants, are herbivores too. People have walked right up to cassowaries for photos simply because the bird didn't look aggressive, a judgment made entirely on appearance, with no information about what actually triggers a defensive strike. That gap between how an animal looks and what it's capable of is exactly where most incidents begin. So, if the body is a weapon and the mind knows when to use it, what's the one trait that ties it all together? The single characteristic that actually makes this bird as dangerous as it is? It's the kick. Specifically, the combination of that dagger claw and the explosive leg power behind it, delivered with almost no warning a human would recognize in time. Unlike a predator that stalks, postures, or growls before committing, a cassowary's charge can happen in a fraction of a second from a completely stationary position. The bird doesn't need distance or momentum. It can deliver a full-force strike from close range, aimed with enough precision to hit the torso, neck, or abdomen. Combine that with a claw built to slice rather than bruise, and the result is closer to a blade swung by a leg with the force of a sledgehammer than anything most people associate with a bird. That single mechanism sits behind nearly every serious cassowary injury on record, an instantaneous strike from an animal most victims believed was simply standing still. None of this exists because the cassowary is malicious. In the rainforests of northern Australia and New Guinea, it plays a role almost no other species can fill. It's one of the primary seed dispersers for dozens of native fruit trees, some of which produce seeds too large or too toxic for nearly any other animal to process and pass along intact. Entire stretches of rainforest quietly depend on cassowaries simply doing what they do, eating fruit and walking through the forest. Its size, its claws, its explosive strength weren't built for hunting or for conflict with people. They were built for a solitary territorial life in dense terrain, where defending a nesting site or a food source could mean the difference between a chick surviving and a bloodline ending. The danger humans occasionally encounter is a side effect of traits shaped entirely by a world that has nothing to do with us. Understood that way, the cassowary isn't a monster hiding in the rainforest. It's a keystone species whose survival strategy simply happens to be lethal when misread. Picture that image from the beginning again, the bird that looks almost too strange, too colorful, too improbable to take seriously as a threat. Nothing about that image was wrong. The cassowary really does look that way. What was incomplete was the assumption underneath it, that harmless is something you can determine by sight. Standing in the dappled light of a rainforest floor, calm, silent, seemingly indifferent to the world around it, the cassowary carries in each leg the physical capacity to end a life in a single motion. It rarely uses it, but it can. That contradiction, beauty and lethality occupying the exact same animal at the exact same moment, is the real reason the cassowary deserves its reputation not as a curiosity, but as one of the most quietly dangerous animals alive.